All right, week 1 NFL Power Rankings. This is one of my favorite things to do. I'll always release these on Tuesday right after the week of games, and then I'll do my predictions on Wednesday. A lot of people like the predictions more. I really enjoy doing the Power Rankings more as far as what I like to do. I like to see how I track and go along and how the teams, how they shake out throughout the year. I'll always do 7 AFC and 7 NFC. So my rankings are a little bit different because that's how the playoffs will shake up. There will be 7 from each conference. So that doesn't mean that the Falcons, who I see being the 14th best team, are better than all the other AFC teams, that there's only 7 AFC teams better than the Falcons. I don't believe that. There's a lot of AFC teams that won't make the playoffs that probably should. But I will go through it on these rankings, get my mug off of there. And what I'll do each week is I'll do my biggest risers and my farthest fallers each week. And after the draft, I wasn't super high on the Bills. I've come around. I really see the Bills being a super contender again. And then I'm coming down on the Jets a little bit with the inner turmoil you hear there. They're not proven. There's a lot of hype on them. So I am coming down a little bit on the Jets. So I'll do this each week. Who's the biggest riser? Who's the faller? And then I'll go through all 32 teams in my brief analysis. This will be a short video, a 5-minute video that just goes over where from 32 to number 1. So at 32, the Panthers should be improved over last year with Dave Canales. You'd have to imagine Bryce Young could be a little bit better. How much is the question? This is definitely a prove-it year that they have to prove they don't belong in the bottom before I can move them up from number 32. 31, the Patriots may well be the worst team in the league this year. In fact, I think they will end up with the number 1 overall pick. They decided not to start Drake May after he was clearly the best quarterback on the roster over the summer. But with that roster, it makes sense not to destroy a young quarterback early. This team feels very much like the 2021 Chicago Bears, a couple years away and in dire need of a rebuild. You don't want to ruin the quarterback early, but with a very young and talented quarterback. At 30, I like some of the moves the Giants made. I think Malik Neighbors could be a great receiver, and Devin Singletary is coming into a great situation for him. Has a history with Brian Daboll, but as long as Daniel Jones is quarterbacking for the Giants, I can't give any confidence until they prove they're not a bottom-tier team. 29, the Broncos are a team that I would love to be wrong about. Those who follow me know I was high on Bo Nix before it was cool to be high on Bo Nix, but it seems like the Broncos stripped it down to the studs so much this offseason that they were setting themselves up for a rebuild, but I think they could surprise some people this year for sure. Next, the Commanders are super interesting. I do like a lot of the moves they made. I think their defense will be better. Cliff Kingsbury appeared to be going to Washington to try to land Caleb Williams. The Bears were having no part of it. I'm not a fan of Kingsbury at all as a coach, but he should be fine as a coordinator. I'm worried about the first time Jaden Daniels takes a big hit. We'll see how well they protect him and limit him running the ball and give him an opportunity to use his arm. I toyed with the idea of putting the Cardinals a lot higher than 27. This could be really fun offense to watch with the additions of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray being completely healthy. The high potential offense is still tied to a defense that's missing some pieces, though. They come a long way, but I don't see this defense stopping many teams. A lot of changes for the Titans combined with a ton of unpredictable youth. The offensive line is the X factor for me on this one. How well they come together and protect Mayo Man will determine how far they can go. They've been a run team for years, and now they're completely trying to transition to the pass, but I'm not convinced Will Levis is the quarterback to do that with. Very lackluster rookie year behind him. At 25, the Vikings might be the least lucky team in the league. After Kirk Cousins' injury last year, taking them out of the playoff race, and then tampering from Atlanta, taking him away from them, they land J.J. McCarthy, and everyone is excited, only to have their rookie injured and out for the season as well. I think Kevin O'Connell is a brilliant mind there, but even he can only do so much with Sam Darnold, so we'll see on this one. There's a lot of these teams that could surprise me, and I'd like to see them surprise me. 24, we'll see if Harbaugh can have his Midas touch again with yet another organization he gets a hold of. It appears as though he wants to run the ball into the ground and pound, and the ground and pound might be the only way that they can have a shot with that wide receiver room. Just too much instability there, which seems like just a waste for Justin Herbert. We'll see if some of these young rookies can make the surprise leap this year, be the reason the Chargers make a push for the playoffs, but I'm not super high on that at this point. The Saints at 23, I think I'm finally done with defending Derek Carr. I think they have to draft a new quarterback in 2025. I like Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill. I like a lot of the weapons they have, but it just seems like there's always more excuses than reasons for the Saints, and I don't see this being a year with things changing that, even though there's decent talent behind the team. I'd like to put the Raiders higher than 22. In fact, their run to keep Antonio Pierce as their coach last year was impressive. I don't know if there's more talented defensive line in all of football, but the quarterback situation is scarier than any in the league. Gardner Minshew played well, stepping in for the Colts last year, but now he has Luke Getsy calling plays for him in Las Vegas, and that's a head-scratcher to me. As to anyone that would give Luke Getsy a job after he basically destroyed Justin Fields' career, but the Raiders are there. That's where they are, and I see Getsy and Devontae Adams as an internal explosion mid-season, and the results won't be pretty for that team. Seahawks at 21 is purely based because they're unproven in a difficult division with new coaching regime. I do like Ryan Grubb. I'm excited to see what he can do with Shane Waldron, what Shane Waldron left behind, and the new addition of one of my favorite offseason signings in Connor Williams at center. With one of the most talented receiving corps in all of NFL, could easily, very easily, be the Seahawks that outplay their 21st ranking by me. All right, the Jaguars are a team that could easily end up in the playoffs or could be one of the worst in the league. After 3 years, we should have a handle on Trevor Lawrence, but I still can't tell if he's good or not. Adding Brian Thomas Jr. was one of my favorite moves for them, with Evan Ingram and Travis Etienne already established there, but I sincerely can't tell what Trevor Lawrence is yet, so we'll just have to wait and see with the Jaguars. They could easily be one of the worst teams in the league. They could make the playoffs. We'll just have to wait and see. The Buccaneers at 19 seem like they could be in for a regression year to me. I wasn't too hard on them because there wasn't a ton of change other than Dave Canales. I'm high on him, and I think he might be the reason the Panthers have any shot of being better than a gutter dweller this year. But in the same regard, I also credit Canales with the surprising 2023 run and making Baker Mayfield resurgent. I think everything points to regression in Tampa Bay, and I was being generous putting Tampa Bay at 19, but we'll see. The Green Bay Packers at 18 might be the lowest you see them on any ranking boards. I have zero hesitation putting them there, though. This is an accurate spot, in my opinion. Matt LaFleur is an absolutely brilliant mind, but the Packers had everything break their way in 2023. And lightning rarely strikes twice. You'll hear Packers fans make excuses for their wide receiver room like it's a positive thing, that they have 6 wide receiver 2s, but there's no way to slice it other than there's 6 receivers that are wide receiver 3s and 4s, at best. And as long as Jordan Love, one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the league, is throwing the ball to them, there's no shot the Packers get lucky 2 years in a row. Packers fans are about to realize what other teams have struggled through when Jordan Love's contract ends up being twice as bad as Daniel Jones and sets the Packers back at least a half a decade. The outlook in Green Bay just took a steep jump off a cliff. Puke emoji, cheese emoji. They are in for troubled times. I've got the Steelers at 17. Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith should be able to make lemonade out of lemons, but this quarterback situation has everyone curious how it's going to shake out. Steelers have one of the toughest schedules in the league, and it's only going to get harder to make the playoffs in a tough AFC North. But the Steelers always seem to find a way to do so. The defense should continue to keep them in every game, and if they can turn the reins over to Justin Fields sooner than later, I think they really have a shot of making the playoffs and being a good team. The Browns at 16 could be even worse than 16 in my opinion. Joe Flacco helped keep some magic alive for the Brownies, but now he's out of town. The Deshaun Watson era has been anything but successful, and now with Nick Chubb's gruesome knee injury, there's more questions than answers in Cleveland. I'm not sold on the Browns, but I put them at 16 out of respect. Rounding out the non-playoff teams is the Jets at 15. Everywhere you look, the Jets are getting respect, and understandably. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson are 2 of the best in the game in my opinion. Aaron Rodgers is finally healthy, and I have nothing but respect for one of the most accurate passers in the history of the game, but he is getting older. Injury could be easier, he could regress, but now reports are coming out that he's not a team player. There's arguing and dissensions. You only wish you had the Hard Knocks crew there to give us an inside peek. The Jets should make the playoffs, and it's honestly criminal that I left them out, but we'll see how the first few weeks of the season go. All right, on to the playoff teams. Remember, I'm not saying the Falcons are better than the Jets, Browns, or Steelers. I'm saying the Falcons will win their division and be a playoff team. I have the Falcons at 14 simply because they squeak into the playoffs. Adding Kirk Cousins to the weapons of the Falcons already have with London Pitts, or with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts, with Bijan Robinson, and that stacked offense gives the offense the firepower they need to take the NFC South. The defense improved as well, but I don't see the Falcons doing anything past a wildcard first-round exit. But at least they'll make the playoffs. At 13, I've got the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts' defensive front is one of the best in the league, but their secondary still has a lot of question marks. How Anthony Richardson comes back from his injury and does in 2024 will be the true identity of this team. They should continue to rely heavily on Jonathan Taylor. And remember, if they would have left him in the game against the Texans in Week 18, it would have likely been the Colts in the playoffs as the AFC South champion instead of the Texans. That whole story would have been rewritten another way. But no, the Colts have to play underdog now, and I think they're talented enough to make the 7th seed in the AFC. That might be a surprise to a lot of people, but that is one of my bold predictions for the year. I think they'll make the 7th seed. Number 12, the Chicago Bears. The Bears defense shut down anyone they faced in the second half of the year. After Montez Sweat was traded for, they generated more pressure, had more interceptions than anyone in the league. It wasn't the defense that was the problem, and they should pick right back up where they left off on defense. What the issue was on offense. They could not get it clicking for some reason. The beginning of the season, they had a couple games there where it looked like they finally would, but then it stalled out. Caleb Williams has every part of generational built into him. Adding Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Gerald Everett, Romo Dunze to an already top-of-the-league talent like DJ Moore and Cole Kmet will only elevate Caleb's transition to the NFL. There's no easing a rookie into the league. Caleb seems like the fierce competitor that wants to take the league by storm, but this offense should make it an easy transition for him. The Bears should easily be near the top of the rankings by midseason. Go back here for just a minute. By midseason, it's just a matter of making them prove it before I put them any higher on the list. Number 11 is the LA Rams. Matthew Stafford has the respect of the league, and Puka Nacua breaking out makes this offense one of the biggest threats in the league. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, and now spending a third-round pick on Blake Corum. The offense should easily be high-powered enough to push its way into the playoffs. I got Mike McDaniels and the Dolphins at 10. I don't know if the defense or any cold weather, really location in January, will be able to keep the Dolphins rolling deep into the playoffs. But the same story in Miami will continue this year with an offense that you'll never be surprised seeing put up 30 or 40 points. We'll roll through those again as I keep yabbing on. I'm hesitant to give the Texans their roses at number 9. As I mentioned, they were only one play away from not even making the playoffs. I do think CJ Stroud has an extremely high football IQ, and DeMeco Ryans looks like he's already turned the Texans around for good, but I'm pumping the brakes a little bit here on crowning them until I see sustained dominance. I think the Colts give them genuine run for the division title, but the offensive firepower on this team is just too much. They should win the division still in 2024. It should be less close than last year. 9 seems like a very respectful place for the Texans. You'll see them ranked higher in other places. I'm just going to pump the brakes a little bit until they can repeat what they did last year. The Cowboys aren't getting a lot of respect at 8. I really like them at 8. A lot of places are putting them even lower. Maybe it's the geriatric backfield they've assembled, or Jerry Jones constantly telling everyone on the team they're expendable. But with CeeDee Lamb re-signed and the defense that should continue to be one of the very best in the league, they should at least make the playoffs, even if that means they're guaranteed a first-round exit with whoever they play, as they proved it last year by losing to the pathetic Packers. 8 seems like a fair place for the Cowboys in 2024. I did not give the Bills respect in my first power rankings. I'm riding the ship right now. It seems like they were content to trade away their assets, stripping the team down for a mini rebuild. There's only one receiver left from last year, and that's Shakur. But adding Curtis Samuel, drafting Keon Coleman to go along with Dalton Kincaid, who will clearly be a big threat this year, should give Josh Allen enough variety to still push the Bills into the playoffs and compete for the top of the AFC East. I'm not sold on the Bills yet, but I do respect Josh Allen enough to keep him in the top 10. All right. At number 6, I'm worried that I'm ranking the Bengals too high, but here I am. Jamar Chase still isn't happy a week away from the season. Joe Burrow refuses to stay healthy. What will the running back results truly be from this team? And let's be honest, They didn't look clean or polished in the preseason, but it's the preseason. They start the year against the Patriots, so that should give them an easy cakewalk to walk into the season and get back up to speed. That might be all they need for this balanced team on offense and defense to start clicking again. I'm good with the Bengals at 6, but admit this might be one of the ones that could make me look foolish with a single injury. The Bengals could miss the playoffs with one single injury. At 5, the Lions shouldn't surprise anyone this year. The most balanced team in the trenches. The Lions boast one of the strongest fronts in the league. They're stacked on both sides of the line of scrimmage, both sides of the trenches. They are just stacked. Probably the best offensive line and defensive line in all of football. They're still a bit thin at receiver, but with Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you don't need to be super deep. They continue to show their weaknesses away from Ford Field as they seem to score at will at home and struggle inexcusably on the road. The Lions aren't used to being the favorite. Let's see how they handle that pressure. But for now, they're definitely a top 5 team in the league and have to live up to that hype through the year. I've got the Eagles at 4. It seems like everyone is ready to turn their backs on the Eagles because of their second half collapse last year. But remember, they were one of the most dominant teams in the league the entire first half of the year and didn't just disappear with a roster that only seemed to improve this year. Adding Saquon Barkley and bolstering the defense in the draft might just have the Eagles back in the Super Bowl. They should be competing for the best record in the league all year. And I expect them to make a statement in Sao Paulo, Brazil next Friday when they absolutely stomp the fraudulent Packers. The Ravens at 3 might just be primed to take over the AFC and make it to the Super Bowl. There's a few question marks on the offensive line, but the best way to mitigate that is to have one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league with a cannon of an arm, and then add to him Derek the Bulldozer Henry to plow through any question marks there might still be there. The AFC North is tough this year, but I think the Ravens easily run away with the division and have a good shot at making the Super Bowl. The Niners at 2 seems too obvious. As long as Brock Purdy is under center and remains the most accurate deep ball quarterback in the league with the ridiculous weapons in San Francisco, the Niners are easily the NFC favorites. The whole Ricky Pearsall situation being shot is extremely traumatic. I wish him the best. I hope he recovers very quickly, but the Niners should, with re-signing Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, they shouldn't be lacking for talent to make big plays, and the defense is always solid. As of now, the Niners should be the favorites to repeat as the NFC North champions. At number 1, even if the Chiefs struggle in the season, they've proven they can turn it on in the playoffs, do magical things. With Pat Mahomes under center, there's no way you can start the season with them ranked anything but number 1. But the lingering thoughts in my head say other teams are more talented than the Chiefs and should overtake them. Rare talents like Pat Mahomes continue to shut me up, though, and thus I have put them at number 1 to start the year yet again, and that's rightfully where they belong until another team proves that they should unseed them. And even then, the freaking Chiefs find a way to turn up in the playoffs and show that they're undisputed the number 1 team in the league. They do it every year. I expect them to make a repeat run this year. I want to see a team knock them off, though. I'm sick of seeing the same team win the playoffs year after year. It's fun to get variety. It's fun to see things be mixed up. All right, with that, I'll bring myself back on here. I want to thank all you guys for tuning in. The new videos will be out each Tuesday for the Power Rankings, each Wednesday for weekly predictions. Give me your thoughts on which rankings I got wrong. Tell me which team I put too high, put too low. I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't hit the like button, please do so. If you haven't subscribed by now, you're in for some good content. Hit the button. You won't regret it. If you don't like it later, unsubscribe. But I think you'll like it. Comment in the threads. Please let me know. Until next time, bear down.